Okay, nothing under public hearings. We do have an ordinance, and it is a charter ordinance amending Section 2 of Charter Ordinance Number 25, adopted July 13th, 2010, eliminating 3 districts and providing for the election of city council members by the city at large. Gus, you want to lead into that?
Very briefly, and before I kick it to our chairman, that the committee that this council formed a couple of years ago, as a result of the lack of action from our Kansas legislative, or this past session, and then the action taken and the directive of the 3 judges that did provide new boundaries for the city of Wellington, dividing us between 2 state districts, District 80 and District 116. The governing body then considered some options and resurrected the ad hoc committee that has been so active and chaired by Mr. Buellesfeld. There have been certain council members that have served on that. The ones that were here have continued, and as a result of that, Mr. Buellesfeld is here this evening to present the action and the recommendation as a result of your very active ad hoc committee. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Buellesfeld. Mr. Mayor.
Okay, JP, welcome. Thanks for coming.
A little bit of a history as we look at Charter Ordinance 27. The City of Wellington has had a 4-ward system since May of 1966, and the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and the Equal Protection Clause requires those wards, districts, whatever they may be, to be of equal size. For different reasons that we may not clearly understand today, those wards were not kept at equal size. So over the last 6 years, we have worked on numerous committee meetings, numerous work sessions, and finally a special council meeting on July 13th, 2010, in which Charter Ordinance 25 was passed. It was slowly being implemented in 2011, 2012, and 2013, creating 3 equal-sized districts, 4-year terms, and 8-year term limits. And we were all very excited and satisfied with what we'd accomplished and ready to move on. But why are we here today, again, discussing this again? The 2010 census data gave us updated data for where the population was for the City of Wellington. The City of Wellington did create 3 equal-sized districts based on those July 13th, 2010 districts on that 2010 census data. But one thing failed in Kansas history for the first time. The Kansas legislature was to have then created equal-sized House districts and Senate districts as they are required by the U.S. Constitution and the 14th Amendment. They failed to do this for the first time in Kansas history. So 3 U.S. federal judges became involved, and they split Wellington into Kansas House 80 and Kansas House 116. And so for the first time in Kansas history, our city was divided among 2 House districts. So now Wellington had a great challenge, having 3 equal-sized districts, with each of those 3 districts in 1 Kansas House legislative district, but more important, with the restrictions of 2010 census data and the contiguous boundaries of the census blocks that we learned that made it very difficult. So what will we consider tonight? At the work session on July 31st, 2012, the City Council directed the committee and myself to come back with what they perceived to be the easiest solution and a permanent solution to that, which would be City of Wellington at-large elections that I will discuss at this moment. How would at-large elections be implemented? On April 2nd of 2013, 6 council members would be elected. The 3 top vote getters would receive 4-year terms. Those that were 4, 5, and 6 would get 2-year terms, and those that were not in the top 6 would not be elected. So this body, as you look at it today, would shrink by 2 members. Then we would again have elections on April 7th of 2015, where the 3 that won a 2-year term on April 2nd of 2013 would try to get a 4-year term. And the citizens would just vote for 3 at that time, and we would have 1 at-large mayor. So at that time, we would be starting in 2015 and every odd year afterwards, we would be voting for 3 council member positions each plus a mayor every 4th year. And so then by April 4th of 2017, those 3 that were in the top 3 out of 6 on April 2nd of 2013, their 4-year terms would come up, and they would hopefully then be in the top 3 to get a 4-year term. One of the questions that was asked at the work session I wanted to address, because I could see the confusion, is What important parts of Charter Ordinance 25 does Charter Ordinance 27 retain? Because some people have expressed concern about losing some of the great things we did with Charter Ordinance 25. We would continue to no longer have primaries under Charter Ordinance 27. Just again, in February of 2012, we faced a primary again, and again continue to have some of the most expensive elections in this nation. Sometimes we've had elections where we had as few as 25 candidates, 25 votes cast for 4 candidates, and at a cost of $5,000. We would continue under Charter Ordinance 27 to retain 4-year terms with odd years with the mayor and the city council. We would continue to retain the term limits. So for those 3 people that are elected on April 2nd of 2013, they would be on the clock of their first of their 2 eligible 4-year term limits. And then the people elected in 2015 would not be facing term limits till they would later possibly win a full 4-year term in 2017. And most important, the city council would be retained at the number 7 that Charter 25 gave us. Also monetarily, one of the questions that came up also in the work session is we estimate that Charter Ordinance 25 will save about $2 million over the same amount of time that the first Charter Ordinance was to have existed. And so Charter Ordinance 27 would retain that economic savings of Charter Ordinance 25. We would keep what we had worked so hard for. How do other cities handle elections? Just as an example, these cities have all had at-large elections for at least 60 years and all function very well and have never considered in any way changing. Arc City, Chanute, Dodge City, El Dorado, Emporia, Kansas, Garden City, Kansas, Hayes, Lawrence, Mulvane, Parsons, Pittsburgh, Salina, and Winfield. As you notice, those cities are much larger than Wellington. They have much greater resources to deal with, and so they even use the simplicity of at-large elections. At this time, it is believed that Wellington is the smallest city in the state of Kansas that still has the complexity of district elections. What would be the arguments for Charter Ordinance 27 and at-large elections? Probably one of the top that I would list is over the last 26 elections, 53% of the members of this body have been elected unopposed. As a student of government and a lover of government my entire life, a system in which the majority of the body over such a long period of time can be elected unopposed is not a healthy system. If an at-large system had existed the last 26 years, no one would have been elected unopposed, at least some level of opposition. So I ask you to think about that. I give you a 26-year time period, 53% of those seats, a person was elected unopposed. Hopefully, it would be perceived to be simple with the ballot box. You would simply go to the ballot box and for the April 2nd of 2013, choose the 6 candidates that you think are best. You could choose 0, you could choose 1, you could choose 6. You could choose up to 6. One of the greatest advantages of at-large is the citizens would have the right to control every single member of the governing body. Presently, they control only 3 of the 9 seats, or 1/3. Often they feel frustrated that they have no control over the 2/3 who make decisions that are not of what they feel are best for the city. In an at-large system, every single person on the city council bench would have to face every member of the electorate. For the members of the committee, they'll be excited to know the redistricting issue will finally be over, because it will have to be dealt with again in 10 years if Charter Ordinance 27 is not adopted. And this city has struggled to be compliant the last 46 years and has struggled with this issue the last 6 years. Resignations. Councilmen like Dana Anderson, who resigned on November 7th, 1995, and John Holmes, who resigned on November 10th of 99, are members of the governing body tonight. They just moved a few blocks. They had the same relationships, the same employment, the same, very little had changed in their life. But we asked them to leave our governing body and how they'd served our community well because they moved out of district. With at large elections, there virtually no of the resignations of Mr. Anderson in 95 and Mr. Holmes in 99 would have occurred. And finally, if Charter Ordinance 27 is passed, it dramatically increases the chances that 10 years from now we will be stuck back placed into one Kansas House district. Arc City, Mulvane, Winfield, all are in one Kansas House district. And they, if you'll read the judge's ruling, that was one of the issues that kept them together by having just one at-large district. Change is very difficult, and I could spend too much time on this, and I won't. The vast majority of the laws and the changes to the Constitution of the United States have resulted in elections, and I just want to quickly focus on one, which is the 19th Amendment that gave women the right to vote. For over 3/4 of this nation's history, women were denied the right to vote, and for much of this nation's history, that was asking too much of the electorate to accept giving women right to vote. Now that we look back on the 19th Amendment, it's very difficult to see why it took so long to make that change. So things that are difficult for change, after they occur, you look back on them and you wonder why they didn't occur any sooner. What would have happened if we had had at large the last 5 years? Basically, over the last 5 years, we had 12 candidates from the 1st Ward, 9 candidates from the 2nd Ward, 8 candidates from the 3rd Ward, and 4th candidate from the 4th Ward. So basically, over a 5-year period, we had 2 from the 1st, 2 from the 2nd, 2 from the 3rd, and 2 from the 4th. Now, that's not to say it would happen in the next 5 years, but that's just what had happened before. The last time we worked on at-large was in February of 2007. The city did not pass at-large at that time. The Wellington Daily News did take a survey at that time, and at that time, about 600 people, or 600 people at least, entered the survey electronically, and 88% were for at-large, 12% were opposed to at-large. Now, that is over 5 years ago, but 88% were for it, 12 against. And since 27 is a part of 25, also there was a survey done just last August of 2012 where 88% approved of what happened under Charter Ordinance 25. Okay, if Charter Ordinance 27 is passed, we also recommend that a sister resolution also be passed that would require this. It would require that on May 3rd, 2017, and every 4 years afterwards, a committee consisting of a chairman, the city manager in May of 2017, the city clerk of 2017, would review Charter Ordinance 27. They would then bring back an official report to this body in this room at this official meeting on June 6, 2017. We would give the concerns, the comments, and opinions on how Charter Ordinance 27 was working or is not working. At that time, in June 6, 2017, this governing body, what it could consist of in June of 2017, would be required to make a decision if they feel Charter 27 was a success and we should go forward with it, or if it was a failure and we should look at returning to district elections. So effectively, we're offering a sunset 4 years, and every 4 years to review this and to require this body to look at it in the most sincere way if it's the right. Okay, for me personally, this is very exciting, because this could be the first time for myself and many of us we would get to vote for every single member of the governing body. We would get to choose 6 members of the governing body. How exciting would it be to see who would come in first? Because I don't know, probably nobody wants to come in last, do they? It's going to be very competitive. Who's in the top 3? Who's in the 4 through 5, 6 to win a seat for 2 years? But more important, just the competition of at large, who will be that top vote getter, who will be that last vote getter, and who are the 2 persons here tonight that don't come back for the next council meeting. And one of the most important parts of government at all levels is competition. And I want to revisit just briefly again that over the last 26 years, the majority, 53% members of this governing body, stepped to this important bench unopposed, and that would no longer occur under at large. Because in the past, you've only been able to control 3 of the 9 seats, and now you would be able to control all the seats. So in closing, I ask that you give sincere consideration to the adoption of the at-large elections in Charter Ordinance 27, and I sincerely offer you that if it doesn't work, we will review it in May of 2017 with the most sincere review and the most sincere request of this governing body, whether to continue it or look at. Many of you are getting ready to ask me if I have concerns that too many members of the governing body could elect up in one part of town. And that's a very sincere concern, and I've actually struggled with it a little myself. But I've come to this conclusion that I would like to take the risk and the possibility that maybe more of the members of the governing body come from one part or the other in exchange for the guarantee that we as the citizens of Wellington get to choose every single person on this governing body. We get to vote for every person on this governing body, and more important, we get a chance to vote against everybody on this governing body. It will give us a chance. The risk maybe is there, but the guarantee is we choose all members of the governing body, and every citizen can say they voted for or against who comes to this bench at the meeting on April 17th, April 16th, 2013.
Very good, JP. Have any questions for JP?
It sounds like some really great work, and it was thoroughly reviewed. Thank you for doing that, sir.
I think it brings a certain amount of unity to the community, bringing it together, because you're going to be able to vote, like you said, you'll be able to choose who's up here on every person that's here and who's not. And in that aspect, I think we'll see a little more unity in this community instead of being one against the other. I had a call the other day from a lady in the second ward that was asking me a question, and she had called the members from her ward there to ask them that question. She didn't get a hold of them. She called me. She said, well, I hope I'm not bothering you. Well, you're not bothering me because I represent the city of Wellington. And so a city at large means that you will be representing the city of Wellington, and everybody in Wellington will be able to vote for you or against you.
Well, Mr. Holmes, when you resigned and when Mr. Anderson resigned, you served every member and all four parts of the community. So it was a great loss when both of you men resigned. But based on that ward system, we were required to lose you. And you just, I believe, especially you, I know you just moved a few blocks and things like that. And all I know is I saw you just as much time in the post office as I did before, no matter where you lived. So
I was 3 blocks over.
I think so.
Anything else? Okay, JP, thank you very much. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second for approval. Does anybody have any final thoughts?
I do. I will vote in favor of this ordinance because I believe it's the best solution to the process that we have to go through. My concern has been that there would be too many council people from one area of town, but that doesn't have to happen that way if people will just step up and run from all over town. I know personally, I know that I represent the 4th district or the 4th ward, but my thoughts are for the entire town, not just for the area that I was elected from. So I would just encourage people from all over town to step up and run.
And to get out and vote.
Yeah.
I think it'll get more people out voting that feel that way. So, go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, and I had some of the same concerns that Jan had, and after working them out in my mind, I have faith in the people of Wellington, Kansas. I don't think we're going to get a cluster in any one area. I don't think that's going to happen because we have great people all around the town, and we're going to find that we're going to have people step up from those areas all around the town. It does require that we get out and vote, and that's important. I think it's going to make the election stronger, more important, and probably, as JP pointed out, it's going to be a whole lot fairer because we get to vote for everybody, or vote against the ones we don't vote for the ones we don't want to vote for. We vote for the up to 6 that we do want to vote for. So the fix, if there's a need to a fix that allays that fear, and it really is a fear that we're going to get a cluster, is that we get out, we find people all around town, and we're not going to have districts or wards anymore, so we don't have to think in blocks anymore. We just think about our neighbors and think about the people that are around us and go find the best guy, no matter where he lives, or the best lady, no matter where she lives, get them to run, and then get everybody out to vote. And there's no way, I'm convinced there's no way we'll ever get the cluster because the citizens of Wellington will become involved in the elections, probably more than they do now.
If I could just address Mrs. Cordy and Mr. Scheimer's comments. I agree that it's highly unlikely, but I just want to kind of confirm for the public, we have addressed that possibility already with the permanent committee that already has an obligation, hopefully with the next resolution, to bring a report to the governing body in June 6, 2017, so that we give a most sincere review of what has happened in the last 4 years.
And you're talking about clusters. When I was in the first ward, the people that were there that lived on Washington Street that had been on the council was John Bastran, lived on Washington Street. Across from him was John Huck. On down the street was me on Washington Street, and on down the street from that was Dana Anderson. So was that a cluster then? Right now, in Third Ward, I live 121 North G. Where do you live?
323 South G.
Who lived across the street from you?
BJ
Tracy.
Tracy did. So, yeah, we
Oh.
probably were the big cluster.
So,
We were-
or, so is it a cluster there? I mean, I don't see it happening.
It's a cluster.
Thank you.
The big cluster. Like that. Anything else from anybody? Okay, Shane?
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Scheimer,
Yes.
Mr. Holmes,
Yes.
Mr. Nunemaker,
Yes.
Mrs. Cordy,
Yes.
Mr. Woodrow,
Yes.
Mr. Brand,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Mayor Stahlbaumer.
Yes.
Charter ordinance number 27.
Okay, JP, thanks again. Really appreciate you. Have more to say on the resolution? Okay. Okay, we're good. Next is the resolution that deals with the charter ordinance, and it's a resolution creating an ad hoc committee to monitor the effects of charter ordinance number 27 as to the election of city council members. So unless there's other questions about that, we'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, anybody have anything? Okay, Shane, can you take roll call?
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Scheimer,
Yes.
Mr. Holmes,
Yes.
Mr. Nunemaker,
Yes.
Mrs. Cordy,
Yes.
Mr. Woodrow,
Yes.
Mr. Brand,
Yes.
Mr. Weber.
Yes.
Resolution number 5508.
Okay, thank you.